Basement 2 weeks ago was technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
And the equipment is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed except Zencastr kind of fucked things up a little bit.
Right. I was really happy with the Mishka interview. Some of you got a version of it where we didn't have the levels proper. So some people still have the but you could hear him. But we really had a good show with him.
You could hear him. That's about as good as you could say about that initial recording.
There it is. You could hear him, but we were able to boost it. And I hope most of you, if you're finding like you're having trouble hearing him on your version, it just means that your podcast aggregator downloaded it, and then you have to get the new version. But so you can find that on middleagesrecovery.com. Listen to it. We got so much great feedback from Mishka. And including from Mishka.
He enjoyed his conversation with us. He said one of the best ones in years.
Yeah, that
best conversation in years he's had about recovery, which is
amazing,
great.
Amazing. And he was so awesome, and just really, really happy to meet him.
Sorry, the question is, why do some people put lemon in water because the citric acid makes it worse?
I mean, like right now...
Some people like the refreshing taste of lemon.
I know. Well, I've got my throat... Obviously, I've been talking all week with this new job. So by the time I get to the podcast, my throat is already shot.
Oh.
So I thought, all right, I'll have some... Mike's got this fancy water cooler that doles out hot water, too.
Just like an office.
Just like an office. So I've poured myself a cup of... hot water.
Are you trying to ask me for a lemon? Because I have a lemon upstairs.
I don't want a lemon.
Maybe a little honey?
I'm saying it's very refreshing as it is. Why add lemon?
Yeah, nothing like a cup of hot water. It's really quite refreshing.
My standards are very low.
Well, you're an easy guest.
Yeah.
So we should probably get started with the show.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat X.
And I'm Mike R.
And boy, do we have a show for you. Today on RMA, as time starts slipping away and the great quickening overtakes us all like a great tidal wave of inescapable inevitability, we return this week for a closer look at self-care and recovery and how it affects us. All this and more today on a very special edition of RMA.
Crack a beer, pull a chair up in front of the fire, and get ready to spend an hour or so with your favorite podcast hosts.
No. Pick up your cup of hot water.
Right.
We're not cracking beers, Jesus.
No. It's I saw something on Facebook, and I hate talking about this, but about Facebook, but somebody posted this picture of Gwyneth Paltrow, who says she likes to start every day with a glass of alkaline water with a twist of lemon.
Alkaline water,
right? Which, of course, once you put lemon in alkaline water, it makes it acidic water. So there's no point.
Yeah, that was a thing, that special water that's like softer or whatever.
Listen, you're a marketing guy. I mean, is that not the best way that you can sell water? You just say, hey, it's alkaline. So people will go out and buy it. These are the same people that buy candles to put in their vaginas and stuff.
Candles in the vagina. And what about
candles that shape like vaginas or smell like Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina?
Oh, Jesus.
I didn't make it up. Gwyneth Paltrow did.
Oh, God. I had no idea. I do know that I've seen ads for Jesus water. Have you ever seen these? It's like these TV evangelists. You can't walk on it, but they can charge you for it, and it will cure all of your
holy
your
water.
It's not even actual holy water. That's like the Catholic Church's fancy water.
Right.
This was one of these TV evangelists who said they got this water from Jerusalem, which I wouldn't drink.
Not without boiling it.
And it's this magic water, and you send us $59.99.
It's probably not from Jerusalem.
It probably is from a tap in
Maybe
Kansas.
There's a drop of Jerusalem water, and the rest of it is from Missouri somewhere. No offense to our Missouri listeners. I love Missouri.
Hey, who is this show brought to you by, Mike?
This episode is brought to you by Recovery in the Middle Ages Patreon.
Yay.
What is Patreon?
I don't know.
I wish more of you knew. Patreon was. No, I'm kidding. It's a members-only subscription service. You give us a couple of dollars a month, and we give you access to our super secret Discord servers where all kinds of crazy shit goes on in there. We post pictures, we talk, we laugh, we cry. It's an amazing time.
It's like real-time chatting, though. Like Facebook, our Facebook group is great, but this Discord server is turned into a monster on its own.
Yes, we have our morning crew that comes on early in the morning and bids everyone a fond good morning.
It is, and in fact, it's so active that I had to put my phone on Do Not Disturb because it was waking my wife up at 5 a.m.
That was
not a joke. That's actually
sounded like a
It's
setup.
tragic. It's tragic. But yeah, so everybody's on.
Wait, you don't get up at 5 a.m.? You're a working man. You got to get your ass to the office. No,
I'm closer to 6, but
okay.
No.
Members will also get extra mini shows, pictures, exclusive merchandise for joining after 3 months, and an added level of support for our collective recovery. Go to patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages to learn more and sign up. Folks, Nat and I are not getting rich off of this podcast, but there are certain expenses that we have here involved in just producing this thing. So if you could throw us a couple of shekels or dollars or whatever your local currency is.
Yeah, plus it makes me feel
Australian dollars.
It makes me feel like I'm being validated.
British pounds.
I love to see that.
I like to see when patrons sign up, it shows the donation in their country's currency.
Yeah.
And then it automatically converts it to U.S.
It's great. Yeah. And where do you go?
I just said patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages to learn more and to sign up.
Thank you very much, Mike. And I'd like to just say, welcome to all the Monksters listening stateside, around the world, down the street, across the table, and right next door. Welcome all. Settle in, buckle up, and get ready for excitement, comedy, tragedy, intrigue, mystery, and so much more. Where can they find us, Mike?
MiddleAgesRecovery.com is probably the best place. That is our website.
It's really good, too.
Yeah, it's really good,
I love
too. You can listen to episodes there. You can buy merchandise. In fact, I was just looking at the merchandise today, the giant box of merchandise next to the treadmill upstairs, and wondering when I can move it out of there.
It's hard to justify making more stuff when the stuff we have is kind of sitting. The original shirt is almost sold out, though.
That's pretty amazing.
I don't know how many we gave away, but those are going. And if you don't know the shirts, go
to middleagesrecovery.com because the shirts are listed there. You can see pictures of them.
Yeah, Ryan's friend in rehab. Actually, I just shipped one to him, and Ryan just posted a picture of his buddy in rehab wearing the Recovery in the Middle Ages original shirt.
Yeah. In order to listen to the podcast, which you're already doing, you can find us at all the podcast outlets, including Spotify, which we have not left in protest like Neil Young did.
No.
Find us there. Leave us a review, please. 5-star reviews are great. You can leave them on Apple, but I heard that Spotify overtook Apple as the main source of podcasts.
Well, shit, that means we really need reviews. We've got about 106 ratings, and maybe, I don't know how many reviews, but if you've already written one, please go to Spotify and give us another one.
Yeah, do that.
That would be great.
We also have weekly recovery meetings. One right now, it's at 11:30 on Sunday mornings. That's Eastern Standard Time, or is it Daylight Time? I always mix those up.
No, Eastern Standard Time, Sundays, 11:30.
Sundays.
Yep.
Okay. It's Daylight Time when it's Daylight Savings. So I don't know if we're in or out of Daylight Savings. It's 11:30. Which is Greenwich Mean Time minus 6 hours.
So long as it's not confusing.
Anyway, I don't know. Yeah. That brings me to the suggestion that you join the Facebook page, because once you join the Facebook page, you will be reminded the time of the meeting. I think Grant sends out a reminder a couple hours before the meeting. So.
And me and Mike go. It's so great. We don't hijack the whole meeting. We're participants. It's great. It's exactly what I always wished AA meetings would be like, basically.
Nat actually talks a little less.
I really, hold back.
If you're having trouble finding the meeting, just email me at mikeR@middleagesrecovery.com. Great reviews will be read on the air. The best place to do that is the Apple Podcast app, like I said, but we will take it where we can get it.
Yeah.
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 And people have sort of fallen away from this little business, but you can tell us your story of struggles, your story of recovery, your story of wherever you're at in your story between of using drinking and recovery, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
We want to hear about your life because we care about you and we want you to be the best person you can be. And sometimes sharing the experience of your life with other people helps you take the first step down the road to recovery. So share your story with us.
Yeah, there's a link on the website.
Oh, yeah.
And, how else can they share it? I think there's a
call the RMA hotline.
Yes.
Which is actually easier for us because then we don't have to print it and all that.
Right.
It's 516-888-6297. Leave us a message. Keep it from 3 to 5 minutes. Tell us your story. Say hello, or even tell us how much the show means to you because we like hearing it. If it's good, we may play it on the air. How would it be bad?
I don't know. It can't.
You know
be
what
bad.
though? I say this with all due apologies to Ryan because I don't think it was his fault.
Right.
He recorded a fairly lengthy 3-minute thing for last week, and we couldn't use it because the audio quality was just so bad. And I don't know if that was on his end, on Google's end, whatever.
He took responsibility like a good recovering addict. He said, my bad, I had bad self-service, but Ryan's doing great. Hopefully I'll get another update from him, and keep him in your thoughts.
Yes.
I think we have a story.
Did this come in on the website?
This came in a couple different places, and I pulled this though from Facebook. This is
I saw this one this morning, I think.
Yeah, this is Danny, and he's actually a patron. He joined us on Patreon.
Thank you, Danny.
And so he was talking on. He wrote this nice little thing. Ding ding.
That's the Patreon bell. I've just decided.
Another patron. And he told a little bit of his story, and I said, "Hey, Danny, this is great." He was at the meeting too, so it was cool to meet him.
Oh, was he? God, see, I missed one meeting, and all of a sudden I miss all the new people.
Yeah, so he actually went ahead. I said, go introduce yourself on the Facebook group too, because there's like over 600 Monksters on there. In any case, this is what he wrote. He writes, I'm Danny, and I was a heavy daily drinker from being around 16 years old up until 2014. I was 38 then, so for 22 years. I then had to stop due to yet another health issue, and I got 14 months of sobriety by more or less white-knuckling it. It's true that when I stopped, though, I started to enjoy sobriety and life got so much better. I got into the whole not drinking thing. I've been sober 95% of the time since then. It's the 5% that's the problem.
Always that last 5%.
That's the hard one. I've turned into a chronic relapsing binge drinker, so I get 6 months here, 4 months there, and then dramatically fall off the wagon and end up getting drunk for a week or more. That sounds like what I used to go through.
Yes, the binging.
I will drink morning, noon, and night, and the binges have gotten increasingly more dangerous. The last one was for 9 days from the 27th December last year, and I simply can't afford to have another one. I currently have 43 days of sobriety.
Yay!
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on the wrong thing.
And but have been here dozens of times before. I've joined to get some connection, accountability, and hopefully sort my shit out. Anyway, thanks for reading, and hopefully I'll speak with some of you soon. Thank you so much, Danny. And I think this is the same Danny that was at the meeting and on Patreon, I'm pretty sure.
Danny Bonaducci.
If it's not, let me know, and we'll read the other guys.
I have to say, I relate to that business of having the last really bad, bender, and the feeling that you're just sitting there and thinking, I don't know how many more of these I have in me.
Yeah.
I feel like if I do this again, I'm just going to fucking drop dead. Like my heart's going to give out, or my stomach, or any of this stuff is going to give out.
That's what happened to me. I was living a life like this. I'd get 6 months, and then I'd chip away, and then I'd fall off, and then until finally it culminated in an overdose. And what? Just to clarify, alcohol was what I was chipping with, but then it brought me back.
Yes.
To the bad stuff. And,
right. The binging with the alcohol, though, like that's something I can really identify with. Like I would, I had my low level, alcohol consumption during the week and like more on the weekends. But when I went out, and I went out in a big way, like if I went to like a Grateful Dead show or some kind of concert or something, like a night out at a concert for me would inevitably involve like days and days of recovery. Because
not the kind of recovery we mean.
No, I would go off to the bathroom, and while I was heading to the bathroom, I'd swing by the bar and I'd have a couple of drinks before I got back to the seat, and then I'd bring like 3 back to the seat because tell the bartender it was for me and my friends, and it was all for me.
You're by yourself,
right? Exactly. But yeah, it was after that night in the cabin in upstate New York when I it really hit it, when the family was around.
Wow.
And I said to myself, I don't have too many more of these in me. And what am I going to do? I'm going to drop dead and I'm going to leave my kids and my wife. So yeah, man, you're in a good spot. Stick with it. 43 days of sobriety is good. And yeah, you've been there dozens of times before, but you know what? So did I, and and it's stuck this time, and maybe it'll stick for you. Hopefully it will.
Yeah. So keep it up, and thank you so much for leaving that. We look forward to chatting with you on the Inner Sanctum, and give a shout out to Danny if you see him on the Facebook group too, and welcome him.
Hey, you know what I got?
What?
I got a joke.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here it comes. Okay.
This is a funny joke.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Al. Al who? Alcoholic. Al, you old fart. Come on in and have some coffee. Right.
That was
Jerry.
Yeah, on our hotline.
So that's what we kind of think we get on the hotline, and that's our good buddy Jerry, who shows up at the meetings and stuff. So
alcoholic.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah, that should be the hotline for dad jokes.
So okay, that's great.
We can get dad jokes.
If nobody wants to tell a story on the hotline, just leave us a joke, please.
Take bad jokes.
So I'm going to read the review now. We got a review.
Yes, we did.
It's titled RMA.
I like it.
It came in on Saturday from former Frank the Tank. Thanks, guys. Glad to have found you. Doing this mostly myself. Right on, man. There is something about listening to folks in the same situation, 40-ish with families. Oh, thanks. That hits pretty right on for me. I've tried many times, and this is by far the longest I've been sober. Every other time I felt like I lacked that step of connecting with others. This does it for me, and you guys have kept me sane for the last couple of weeks. Thanks again. Glad to be a Monkster. Chris L.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. And we're glad to have you as a Monkster.
I'm glad we do it for somebody.
Yeah, that was cool. Thank you so much for...
Are you tired, Matt? Because there's a lot of sighing.
I'm sorry. Is that getting picked up on the mic? It's
been a rough week, man.
Yeah, it's been a rough
We need to practice
month.
some self-care.
I know. Self-care. Is that the bell that when they're meditating, what's that bell? It's like... Bong.
Oh, yeah, there's a few different... Right. I forget the name of the
should
bells.
Get a gong, too.
Well, I would recommend... I don't know, maybe I'll talk about this later, but there is an app out there called the Insight Timer. It's a meditation timer.
I've heard of this.
You press the button on the phone, and it begins with a bell that sounds very much like that one. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So
we have a Monksters Speak.
Wait.
Are you ready for the...
What did they lead up to? Let's take a peek. The segment we call Monksters Speak.
I think that's going to stick. I'm. It's really growing on me. Like
you don't like the other one?
Like a black mold. No, this is the one, I think.
Nobody liked the other one.
I think this is the one. I think this is it. So for those of you who are new to the show, we do a Monksters Speak segment, and usually I'll put out a topic on our Facebook group or the Inner Sanctum on Discord and just see what you guys have to say about it. It gets the discussion going. And so...
I forgot we were going to have to bring it up on the phone.
Yeah, because I didn't get a chance to put it on the outline. I said, hey guys, today's discussion topic is self-care. How does self-care figure into your recovery? This is great because it goes with the topic. What kinds of things do you do besides recovery?
Is that an accident, or did we do that on purpose?
Bit of an accident.
I think you did it on purpose.
Recovery, direct stuff. Wait, and I said, what kinds of things do you do besides recovery stuff to support your development and better your life? So we got a bunch of answers.
I wish I could find the post.
First one is...
Oh, here it is.
Maggie F. says, I read Not Drinking Tonight by Amanda White recently, and she said, self-care is anything that your future self will benefit from.
Oh.
One example she gave is setting boundaries. Lessening people-pleasing is my favorite self-care activity now, and she really got my attention with the people-pleasing, and I think... my response was setting healthy boundaries is huge for me. I'm still working on it, but I am so much better these days with that.
Does this mean this self-care by lessening people pleasing means you can walk around telling people to go fuck themselves?
Go
because
fuck yourself.
That would be very satisfying.
Yeah.
And is that self-care? I don't know. It feels delightful sometimes.
It does feel delightful.
I mean, one doesn't want to be an asshole, but...
No, one doesn't. No. Do one. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, self-care. And
Colette,
the people pleasing. Oh,
yeah.
in Europe,
I was going to go to. I
hurts.
found it.
Oh.
Yeah. Colette says, I walk for 2 hours a day and listen to Audible and your podcast while I'm walking. Have also been having weekly massages, which are amazing.
Ooh.
On weekends, I nap in the afternoon for about an hour, and I read every night before going to sleep. To me, exercise is key. Yes, 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 and yes, and no. I cannot stand the thought of people touching me. Do you do massages? I just everyone thinks I'm insane, but I just do not want people I don't know putting their hands on me.
I don't like it either, and to make matters worse, my sister-in-law is a professional masseur.
Oh.
Is that the word? Or
masseuse?
I don't think they say masseuse. I think that's like diminutive or something.
Is that
diminutive.
Is masseuse like a
diminutive? Masseuse, I think, has
diminutive.
Diminutive. Thank you.
No, I don't know if that's the word.
I don't either.
Saying it over and over.
So I was complaining to my wife about my back or something like that last week. When I was moving the store, and my back is actually better today. Now that I've just said that, I've realized it's better.
Good.
She said, just call Nicole. She'll, and she's been telling me this since
this is your wife's sister.
My wife's sister. Have Nicole.
No, I'm not doing that.
And
either.
I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't make me look like a sicko, but I have to say, I'm really not comfortable with, being handled by your sister. I get it. She's a professional, and it's not like
maybe if you say it that way,
but that's the feeling I get. Obviously I'm not having impure thoughts, of course, but maybe it's just a thing where I don't like someone touching me like that,
especially your sister-in-law.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me, and so I always have to say no, although I'm sure it's just all on my side of the table.
I had a massage once years ago, and I just laughed through the whole thing. I just found it was ridiculous. Plus, I'm very ticklish.
Tickle me. Who's next?
Kelly is next.
Okay.
Do you want to read Kelly's? Or
Sure.
Do you want to rest your voice?
Both. I took up a daily yoga practice, says Kelly.
Yeah.
Started with easy, short video instruction on YouTube, and a month later taking classes 3 days a week. I'm hooked, haha. Aside from the physical benefits, I'm noticing an improvement in my mental outlook as well. I can hardly believe it myself, but this new routine helped me quit smoking cigarettes too.
Yes.
I've never been a religious person, but yoga has a spiritual aspect that I am quite fond of.
Yes, Kelly. Understood. I have always had a sort of a weird relationship with doing asanas, but the yogic philosophy is something that I'm very into, and I recently reread the Bhagavad Gita, which is a fantastic book.
Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, a lot of the answers to our life's burning questions can be found there, and it's a wonderful text. The spiritual side of yoga, I find, is really cool.
Maybe we can dive into yoga and recovery on one of these shows.
Yeah, we could do that, because I could get these bhakti. I have these Hare Krishnas. It's a long story.
Yeah.
But I can get some on the show if you would like.
I would.
All right.
Thank you.
I get the next one. Amy says, working out.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Working out is good.
Now you get the next long one.
Christine C., one of our longtime listeners and Monksters, says, I'm finally getting back to my old self, so I rarely sit down. I feel I got to stay busy, so it's cooking, baking, cleaning, crafting, but everything I do in excess, including drugs and alcohol. I'm the same way, Christine.
Yep.
So yesterday I decided to go get an old dresser I had poked away and started playing around it. Now I'm scanning the house for any or either drawer I can get my hands on. Already got 2 done. I'm coming up on 6 months on the 28th of February. And you guys really encouraged me. Thanks for always checking in, Nat. Thank you so much, Christine. And I have to apologize. I haven't been as active on the boards lately, but I think that's great. You're doing great. Keep it up. Now, I think I'm the same way as Christine is, and I think you're a lot like this. Where,
yes.
Part of my recovery and staying just sober, I'm doing so much stuff. Like when I have downtime, this is a bad thing. Like idle hands, and we've talked about. So yeah, I mean, there's such a thing as too much of that, though, and I think she's sort of alluding to that.
I think that's a big problem for people like us who have these addiction issues and substance abuse issues. We really take on more than we can handle because it keeps us busy. It keeps us moving. It keeps the little stuff and little gremlins in our head moving around. Like today, like I've been very busy at work because, the pandemic is ending. Maybe.
Is it?
Something's, well,
I haven't been
the restrictions have all been loosened. So, my work is heating up quite a bit. Right. And I had 3 conference calls today, and, in between the calls, I vacuumed and washed my car because I didn't have anything to do during the 20 minutes between each call.
Right. So you're just filling up every empty space.
And I realized how insane that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do it. My car is awesomely clean, though.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Can you do my car next?
No.
I would love to. Yeah, I'm that same way. And before, when I was, running that store that wasn't busy, I had all of this time during the day.
Yes.
And I was doing so many. I kept saying yes to everything, helping with this, doing with that, this podcast, everything. And now, I just went into this full-time job, and now I'm trying to fit that same stuff in.
Yeah, you can't.
No, it's impossible. So I have to figure out what I can hang on to. Luckily, I'm hanging on to doing this podcast because this is my favorite thing to do, So this is one thing I am not going to let go.
Yeah, I find this to be incredibly relaxing, frankly.
Yeah, when I can finally wind down and get my mind focused. The only thing I'm not crazy about is coming straight from work right here. I'm not getting that real. But when else am I going to do it? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, folks may see some subtle differences in how we approach the show.
Yeah, maybe we don't need to put 4 hours into making the outline.
Yeah. I mean, we have a breezy conversational style that lends well to non-preparation.
Right.
Okay, so moving along, Grant says, I know you are tired of talking about running, but that's key for me, and forcing myself to connect with old colleagues and friends has been important. It takes effort on my part, but I usually get a boost afterwards and I feel good. Cool. Yes, running is the non-negotiable thing for me. That's what I have to do.
Our favorite Rob S. Is this the UK Rob, same guy on Patreon?
Yes, he is a man of many names.
So yeah, this is a gold standard monkster here. He's on all of our groups. Rob S. says, exercise has been great for me.
There we go.
Walking, running, or a gym visit helps lift my mood. I've been amazed at my progress as I've never pursued fitness whilst being sober. I love the British guys. I also make sure I adopt the saying, quote, never do tomorrow what you can do today. Yes, the aim of this is to reduce the number of plates spinning and thus making life more manageable. Very, very good, Rob. That's a lot of wisdom in that little post right there.
But wait a minute.
What?
Never do tomorrow what you can do today. Doesn't that mean you're doing more today?
Do as much as you can. Don't put stuff off. Don't be the procrastinating addict.
Because I would think because I tried to do it all today.
I'll gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. I think.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Wimpy is not someone I would base my life on.
I think he
has hamburger issues.
Church of Wimpy. Chris M. says, I make a conscious effort to fill my time with things I enjoy. Hiking is a big one. I am learning 3 different instruments. Awesome, dude.
Okay, Chris. We're not taking on too much, are we?
I read a whole lot, too. I have rekindled my Buddhist practice since I stopped getting drunk.
That's a whole lot easier to meditate if you're not drunk.
Yeah.
What I used to do, though, for that long stretch where I had my drinking down to 1 or 2 glasses of wine a night, I would try to meditate after drinking 2 glasses of wine. And I don't know what I was doing, but it wasn't meditation.
How did that go?
Nah, my brain was all over the place. I couldn't focus on anything. It was absurd.
Yeah, people do a lot of smoking weed and meditating. I don't, understand how that, do you just blast off into space? Or?
I can meditate on a 20-minute dark star if I'm smoking weed,
Yeah.
But in terms of getting in touch with the essence of my inner self.
Yeah, you lose something.
Not so much.
When you're meditating and not sober, but to each his own.
Hope says, I don't do enough of it. Everyone else's needs take priority.
Ooh.
Got to watch that.
Yeah, because
you're important.
Yeah, and I'm dealing with this right now because I'm, everybody's yes man, especially with this new job. I'm the man. So everybody's coming to me. I want to make everybody happy when I get home. Like right now, all this anxiety I have over not going home is because I can't please my family if I'm not there running around like a butler. Daddy, I need chips. Daddy, give me water.
Right.
Daddy, I need this. Nat, finish the day. Like whatever. So that is definitely something to look out for.
You really have to. You have to carve out space for your own needs. You just have to. Otherwise you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, and this, like what I'm doing right now, is part of that. Right? Doing this show.
It's hard though because you get into a habit, you get into a pattern, putting other people first, and there's nothing wrong with like being in that service mindset, like serving other people. Like whenever I start feeling like I'm doing too much around here, I kind of switch it over to like I'm participating in service. I'm serving the family. I'm serving thing. It's a bhakti yoga thing.
I like holding this mic a little bit.
It's a heavy bass on that.
Oh, Lordy. You should see me. It's just like
there's some Patreon content right there. Ali says, exercise is non-negotiable. I try not to overextend myself and my time. I need balance or it comes out in negative behaviors. I listen more closely to my inner voice and I trust it more now. And I said, yes, totally non-negotiable. Sometimes it's hard when I'm outside running at 5 a.m. in the freezing cold and dark to think of it as self-care, but maybe I just need to change my attitude.
Self-flagellation is more like it.
Listen, I get my dopamine from natural sources. And in my case, it's running around in the dark at 5 o'clock in the morning with an aching hip.
Hey, whatever floats your boat.
That works for me.
And that's also a lot of fun. I can't wait to get back to running. I know I keep saying this, but I'll get a new pair of Brooks.
You may have to get up at 4:45 in the morning.
I really just need to gain weight again. Like I lost all my muscle weight because I haven't been to the gym and I haven't been eating. Like I was eating to grow type of stuff. Like I was taking my protein shakes. I was eating to grow.
Oh.
Like my 2 grams of protein per pound I weighed, and I was working out 4 days a week, and I was eating protein and then, but my body is such that when I don't, I get skinny.
I wish I had that problem.
So
when I just sort of let myself go,
my dad said, we were talking about how my dad is overly critical. He made some comment about me looking anorexic.
That was nice.
I'm like, thanks, Pop. I'm a little stressed out. I haven't had time to go to the gym. In any case, all right. I think maybe we should move on to the life update. Unless you want to get those last 2
people left. And what if those 2 people are like, holy shit, why didn't they read my thing?
Maya says, setting boundaries such as not working too much overtime, asking for help with chores, not answering the phone sometimes, and things like that.
Yes.
Totally agree.
Pulling your head back in the shell and just ignoring everybody.
Right. Head in the sand. No, but really.
I have a hard time doing that, though.
It's good to turn off.
I want to do it.
You have to turn off
but
sometimes.
I can't do it sometimes.
Daniel M. says, meditation is a big one for me. 10 to 20 minutes every morning can really help with a racing mind. 100%.
Yes.
I wish I had the discipline to start doing that again.
I can't do it in the morning. My mind's already too going. Yeah. Like, I got to do it at night before bed. It's a good way to turn things down.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. So thank you so much, Monksters Speak.
Monksters Speak.
What did they been up to? Let's take a peek. The segment we call Monksters Speak.
So we have made it to the life update portion of the show.
Have we?
The last show, we didn't do any life update, really.
And nobody complained.
We didn't do recovery in the news.
What the fuck is going on up there? Can you people hear this? It sounds like the dogs are ripping each other's throats out.
They're trying to kill me. I think they're angry with me.
I can't.
They came with the studio. There's nothing we can do.
So, life update. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Super Bowl was this past Sunday.
That's right.
And I didn't really have any skin in the game. I'm nominally a Jets fan, which means that nothing ever happens in the postseason, but or the playoff season or the Super Bowl. It's depressing, but it is what it is, But the night of the Super Bowl, I was in Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company.
Yes.
I was there because my son got accepted into Scranton University, and they had a event on Monday morning that I wanted to go take him to.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
we came up the night before, and we stayed in this little Hilton around the corner. I ordered some food down in the hotel restaurant to bring back up to the room because he didn't want to eat in the restaurant, my son. So I go down there, and I kind of sidle up to the bar, and, there's a scene there. There's people hanging out, throwing back the beers, throwing back the Yinglings.
I saw the picture you sent me. Yeah, it was like...
And I was like, I wonder if they have a 0-0 beer here. I'm feeling all Superbowl-y and American. So they did. They had a Heineken 0. So I ordered it. And I sat there at the bar, and I drank it while I watched the pregame show. I had no desire to drink any real alcohol, but it did kind of feel nice sitting in a convivial atmosphere with people who are not shit-faced yet because the game hadn't started yet.
Would you have had that same feeling had you just had a Shirley Temple?
Yeah, probably.
So the question is, what all the Monksters want to know is, why bother with an NA beer? Why even... is it just to see it in that psychological... I don't know, like, what is it?
Maybe there was some of that going on.
Which is fine,
Football, beer... America, USA, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
America.
I was on Joe Biden Avenue, by the way.
Really?
Which is interesting.
Didn't know he had an avenue.
There's several avenues named after Biden.
Huh.
There's also President Joe Biden Expressway.
Are you kidding?
No, he's Scranton Joe. But
No kidding.
anyway, I don't know. I guess I could have ordered a Shirley Temple, but I didn't. I ordered a Heineken 0-0, and
that's your right.
I'll have a couple a year of these NA beers. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It was the first time I had been in a bar in quite a while. But I felt extremely secure in my recovery. Like, I knew that I could drink one of those 0-0s and not follow it up with a shot or a real beer or anything else. I just waited. I got my food, and I went back up to the room, and that was that.
That's because you're recovered.
The food was terrible, but that's beside the point.
Gastro.
But yeah, I would say that. Yes, I mean, I just wasn't interested.
Yeah,
I
get that same feeling when I'm in situations like that. When I didn't used to. That's why I notice it.
Yeah.
Now I have that same like lack of emotion about it. I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't occur to me.
I was noticing what other people were drinking, as they were ordering stuff, just kind of out of curiosity's sake. There was a lot of beer being consumed, but the couple sitting next to me, I mean, one of them had an alcoholic drink, the other didn't, and my memory of bars is usually that everybody in them is as shit-faced as I am, but I realized that that's not the case.
They were all quite civilized.
I mean, there are certainly a lot of bars where that probably was the case, certainly at certain times of the day. But, I used to go out a lot after work with friends, and there were friends who you knew were in for the long haul, and there were other work friends who would come and then disappear after a half an hour. Maybe they'd have a drink, maybe they wouldn't.
The short haul.
Yeah. But certainly my perception was that everybody drank as much as I did, which was completely inaccurate because nobody drank as much as I did.
People always say that. When I was active in using, I would say things, nobody does heroin. This is crazy. And then the guy would be like, are you kidding? Everybody does heroin. And I'm like,
so that's like the opposite.
I mean, when you're in it, you think everybody's doing it. I mean, this guy was very paranoid, and he would be saying, a lot more people do it than you think, And it made me think, like, well, what am I missing? Maybe I've got this all wrong. Maybe this heroin thing is great. And it wasn't.
It wasn't.
It really wasn't.
But that, that whole thing at the bar kind of set me up for what happened a couple of days later. I come back on Valentine's Day, do the chocolate and the flowers. I arranged the flowers in advance, thank God. But, I have a work conference coming up.
Valentine's Day.
It was Monday.
Okay. I just remembered.
Yeah. I have a work conference coming up at the end of March, and it is the first one where everybody in this particular industry group will be together for the last 3 years, right?
Wow.
So I've not seen any of these people. So in the interim, one person that we used to do work with has passed away of cancer.
Sucks.
And I had two people, one her ex-law partner and another someone who was friends with her, say, we have to get together and drink to her memory. Literally, like right out there, like we're going to get drunk, And I thought, when I left the bar in Scranton that I was pretty chill with, that. But this is like it's a bit of a different situation, Yeah. It's like people I haven't seen really, the last time I saw these folks, I was still drinking.
Right. So you have to reestablish
So this is the first time, yes.
Right.
And Aaron was like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I have a couple options, right? I could do the fake it option where I, pour out the beer, fill the beer bottle with water, do the ginger ale in the glass trick and all that shit. Or I could just be like, you know what? I quit drinking at the beginning of the pandemic and I just never went back to it. And I think I'm going with option B because I don't want to have to sneak around.
No.
Nor do I feel like,
I understand when people have to do that or feel like they have to do it. But what I've come to realize is honesty is the best policy. Yeah. And the people who aren't okay with it are not okay. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I was just looking at it as like one less thing I needed to, worry about. What happens if someone wants to go to the bar and get me another drink,
right.
And then I'm like, oh shit.
And you're like Jack Tripper from Three's Company, throwing it.
Pour it in the plant, at the Regal Beagle.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that was interesting because I didn't really stop to think about how everything opening up with work means I'm going to see people that I haven't seen since before I quit drinking,
Yeah, things are
some of them
different.
I used to drink quite a lot with.
This could be a great opportunity for you to convert more sober people, I think a lot of people right now, because it's in the public consciousness, with dry January and all of the reports about, in the news about drinking being up, I think people are thinking about this. There's more celebrities, that are openly sober.
Alcohol increases your ability to drive. Alcohol.
Thank you, Otto. It's just, I don't know. I think that the world is ready for a sober Mike. Right?
Mike is ready for a sober Mike.
Mike is ready for a sober Mike, but I think you're going to do just fine.
Thank you.
I've already actually had this conversation with the owner of my company,
who is a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Someone would hope he would have more understanding than the average boss.
That's what he said, I forget why part of the reason he asked me about it is because before I was working there full time, I helped one of the employees there get into rehab, and I kind of, so I had to. Oh, right. Yeah. So, after he hired me basically to run his company as the director of operations, and, while we were discussing things, he said, I just wanted to say, I know that you helped our friend here, and he asked me, do I have anything to worry about? Oh. Like with you, because there's been some other problems. And you know what? I said, listen, no. I mean, anything's possible, but I'm strong in my recovery. I've got, 4 years and then some. I do a podcast on recovery. I said, I'm solid, and he's like, oh, no, I'm a psychologist and I understand. I said, I know you do. Right. And I respect, you asking me that. I'm comfortable. I said, anytime you want to talk about it, buddy. I had to turn it around a little bit. I'm like, anytime you want to talk to me about something. He's like, no, I don't need any. I said, no, it's all right.
That's a great idea there.
That's what I said.
Flipping it around. It's like Jedi mind trick.
Yeah. Do you want to talk? Can we talk? And he was very cool about it. I'm glad it's out in the open. And I said, man, I don't drink, and this is part of my life. And I said it that one time, and it's just out there, so I don't ever have to, we had a couple of business meetings with vendors and things like that. And I don't have to worry about, if there's hey, everybody have a drink, because, Dr. Mike, the other Mike, right, is he'll back me up. He wants me to be his key man and to be on point. And, so I'm comfortable.
I mean, that takes a huge, concern right off the table from the get-go.
Absolutely.
Right? That must feel really good.
Did you say gecko because it's insurance?
No, I said gecko because I'm looking at a leopard gecko across over your shoulder.
So that was very cool.
Yeah, that is cool, man. That's great.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting at this job. I mean, I forgot, I had a couple of Monksters say, oh, you got to tell your Super Bowl story from, I have a famous Super Bowl story.
It should be an annual tradition. Because please, go ahead.
Well, I haven't really prepared to tell the story, so I'll just sort of off the cuff it. So I had this when I was just starting out in AA. This was actually my second sponsor. I don't know. I might have had a couple of months, and I was doing all the sponsee stuff. We used to do.
You were the sponsee.
I was the sponsee.
Okay.
He was the sponsor. I love this guy. I still talk to him. He ultimately fired me. This was the start of the reasons why.
Okay.
But we did so much stuff together. We started our own meeting that is still going today, like an AA meeting.
Oh.
We did a meeting we did a living sober study group meeting, which was very different. You don't see a lot of those. You'll see a big book meeting. You'll see a step meeting, an open whining meeting. And then we said, let's do living sober. And that meeting is still going strong today. I think it's Tuesdays at 8:30 in that town nearby. And so I was very not only that, he had they call it H&I, which is hospitals and institution meetings.
Oh.
It's a whole department at AA Intergroup. And so he was involved in bringing a meeting into the psych ward of the Glen Cove Hospital.
Oh.
And so he would bring me every week. And basically what it was, the hospital basically let us in to the psych department or whatever it's called. And we would have an open AA meeting to anybody who was interned there, I guess. Is it interred or confined? And so it was really interesting.
Committed.
Basically, people would just show up if they wanted to, and then my sponsor Mark would, he would basically pitch AA, and I would sort of back him up a little bit, and then we would do a little meeting, and try and support these people and get them interested. Really proselytizing.
That must have been an interesting experience.
It was very rewarding, and I enjoyed it. And so I was really working with this guy a lot. We were doing the steps together. I think I got up to step 5 or 6 with him. So it was maybe 6 months, maybe 5 months of sobriety. I can't remember, but he lived in this apartment building, like a condo building, and his neighbor, who was also in our AA group, was having a Super Bowl party.
Yes.
And I said, yeah, that would be great, Mark. I'll be there, because I didn't have much of a social life at the time. Not like today, but it's actually still pretty bad. But and so I said, yeah, this would be great. I really liked hanging out with him. He's an older guy. He was cool. We got along. And he was showing me the way, I was really enjoying learning, but I still wasn't ready. My brain was still cooking. And so, I don't know, I didn't think of like, hey, if this is my sponsor inviting me to another guy in AA's party, there's not going to be alcohol.
One would think.
Well, this guy's wife or whomever he was living with, I think it might have been a girlfriend, she wasn't a sober person. This was a Super Bowl party, and there was alcohol there.
A lot of alcohol?
Enough. It wasn't like crazy, it was just, and it was a small apartment. So we were sitting there,
kind of hard to get away with shit.
But I did it anyway. So I went, the couch was in the one room, and then there was a little kitchen. It was the size of the apartment was like, living room was the size of this room we're in now. And then there was like a kitchen. So I was going in to get a drink, Coca-Cola. And right next to the Coca-Cola, God, I can't remember what I was drinking. I wish I could. Maybe I was able to put some rum in it or something.
Uh-oh.
I started spiking my drinks, going back, sitting right next to him.
Thinking you're all slick.
And he didn't appear to notice. Like, he didn't look at me sideways, Like, I think he was caught up with his girlfriend, and, it was a fairly decent-sized party. I continued to drink. The night goes on. I go, this is great. Nothing's going wrong. I keep sneaking back to the kitchen, pouring myself a rum and whatever. And nothing was said to me all night. Now, when it was time to go, have you ever been in a party when you were drinking, you're sitting down the whole time, when you finally stand up?
All of a sudden the world looks very different.
So, the whole thing was ending. I stood up to go, and I nearly fell down. And he was looking at me, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, yeah, man, I'm just tired. I got to get going. He goes, okay, let me walk out. And we walked down to my car, and he didn't say, like, hey, you've been drinking. He was kind of like he was totally flabbergasted,
Well, he was trying to figure out how you put one over on him.
He's thinking, there's no way he's drinking. This is my sponsee, He's been coming to meetings with me. We're doing the steps, and here we are. And I was clearly drunk, but he did not confront me until the next day, but let me drive home, So,
Wow.
I fought him a little
Maybe
bit.
he didn't think you were that drunk.
I guess.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, I woke up. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. But since there was no open altercation, I was like, maybe I got away with it.
Yeah.
So I finally get him on the phone because I was calling him every day, and I was like, hey Mark, how you doing? And he's like, hey Nat. I'm like, great party, huh? Can you pick me up for the meet, or we're going to the meeting tomorrow night, or blah, blah, blah. I was just started to go into regular sponsor stuff. He's like, just dead silence for a second. Nat, you got wasted last night at the Super Bowl party. What are you talking about? And he said that, and then it dawned on me that I did not get away with this.
You were not half as slick as you thought you were.
No, and from there was a meeting at his office, and he basically fired me and all of that.
Wait, he called you into his office to fire you as a sponsee?
Yeah. He was an insurance broker guy. And that was that, and I was really upset.
So wait a minute. Let me ask you this.
I showed up drunk to the meeting, by the way.
Oh, well, I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound.
And that's when he was like, forget it. There's nothing I can do for you, basically. I was constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself. Yeah,
so that was kind of my question. When you get fired as a sponsee in AA, what do? They're like, good luck. Have a nice life. We'll see you. We'll send a delegation to the funeral, like that kind of thing.
Basically, it's like, I can't help you. You need to find another sponsor. You can call me anytime you want, but I can't be your sponsor anymore. And that's what it was. When we maintained a relationship, and I did get.
But all you need is a desire to stop drinking. Now, you don't actually have to stop.
Right,
AA gives you an out there.
But he doesn't have to waste his time every day trying to keep me sober. So,
but is it a waste of time?
He felt like
okay. So you fell off a couple of times within the same 24-hour period.
Oh yeah, I was off,
and
he wasn't ready to. He just had it. He's like, I can't.
Yeah.
He has other sponsees. He's got a busy job. We had a good. But clearly, what he was doing was not helping, and he recognized that this was not helping me, and thought I would be better served by someone else.
Okay, so they don't just say, well, via con Dios, see you later.
Some of them,
go fuck yourself.
It's not that. Some of them might do that. I mean, I've heard all kinds of. Hey, and by the way, Monksters, if you've got a funny sponsor breakup story, I love sponsor breakup stories. They're so funny and awkward.
I just find them incredibly tragic.
It is.
People who are like, if this is the model that's being put forth as, the way for people to get better, then they maybe shouldn't be firing their sponsees when they do what sponsees inevitably do in recovery, which is not a linear thing.
But he's not a professional.
He's not a professional.
This is another guy trying to stay sober. So if I'm getting that drunk, I can imagine this is not good for him either.
Well,
so
maybe if you have AA sobriety and you're constantly with the feeling that you're going to go out and drink again because you're only one drink away from a jail institution or death.
That's right.
I guess, but
Well, so that's my Super Bowl story.
It's a great story, and I'm sure it's funnier in hindsight than it was at the time.
It is, and every year after that, on the Super Bowl, I would call him, even though he wasn't.
Now, that's great.
I didn't do it this year because I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years, but it was kind of a funny thing between us, and he had a good attitude about it, and I would love to get him on the show. He's a great guy, and if you're listening, Mark, which I know you're not,
you never know, man.
I still love you,
Maybe
man.
he's listening.
I'm not sure what benefit you got out of being a drunk pimp. I'm not sure.
So that was my Super Bowl story.
Lovely. Love the Super Bowl story.
Did you have another interjection before I go on and on about my other thing that I have here?
No, you can go on and on about your other thing if you want. Go ahead.
So
that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So, guys, I've started this new job. I know I say it a billion times, but this is consuming my life right now. One of the upsides of this job is that I'm not working Saturdays.
That is an upside.
So this is my time. I'm still dealing with closing the store, and there's still a lot of stress shutting things down. One of the last things I had to do was sell a lot of my old inventory. And so it started
Did
Saturday.
you take a searching and fearless inventory of your store's contents?
It was searching and it was fearless. And yes, I did. And but my Saturdays for the past couple of weeks, instead of relaxing, have been jam-packed with action. And I just I took a moment in the middle of this chaos on Saturday, after it maybe, because it was after everything, and I hit the dictate button on my phone, and right into the outline, I just wrote this. Woke up Saturday to get to my parents' house by 10 o'clock to sell a bunch of stuff. There was a problem with the check he cut me. Then I had to go to my son Max's basketball game by, I think it was like 11:30. Then I then took my older son to a Pokemon Club at the Board Game Cafe. Spent, a couple of hours there. And then when I came home, the neighbors were over playing with my other son and with my older son. So there was like a play thing going on with our neighbors. Noah was going out on his bike. On top of it, we've had plumbing issues. There was a leak in the basement I may have talked about. The plumber came at 3:30 and he was doing work on the house. And this kitchen sink wasn't working while this was going on.
Everything and the kitchen sink was going on.
And then when Noah came back, we went out to dinner, keeping in mind, I am exhausted. I am completely wiped out. And it's like, and of course, my wife is like,
where'd you go to eat?
We went to, I'm drawing a blank.
I'm always looking for a new place.
It wasn't that great. It was the old Mims.
Oh yeah, in Syosset, George Martin.
Yeah, George Martin. And I was like falling asleep with like, and I'm like, I'm not high and I'm not drunk yet. I can't keep my eyes open and it's 5 o'clock.
Been there, my friend.
And I think I might have been under the weather, but we went out for a nice meal, but I got home and it was just so much stress.
Did you get Carvel?
So much stress. Yes.
Okay, good.
We did. In fact, they didn't want dessert from George Martin. They wanted
it's too
to go
expensive
to
and it's not very good.
I like the saucers. So,
flying saucers?
Yeah.
Do you ever get the pistachio one?
No, I didn't. It sounded amazing.
It's a little known flying saucer, but if you can find it, it's worth getting.
I think they can make
if
them.
you like pistachio.
So that was my Saturday, and
I just have to note that after that paragraph of intense emotion and exhaustion, you have a sentence that reads, regarding weed psychosis, you can't make policy based on how diabetics process Skittles. Would you mind explaining that?
So if
Smoke weed every day.
If you can't tell, I've got information coming in from all angles, screwing me in every hole, basically.
Ooh.
Sorry about that.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
I was listening to another podcast. I think Joe Schrank, he just said something that I thought was brilliant.
Regarding weed psychosis.
Yeah.
You can't make policy based on how diabetics process Skittles.
Yeah.
Huh? Am I right?
That's exactly right. And I thought it was a great point, though, because I think Amy Dresner was saying something like, because Joe Schrank is a big proponent of, he did High Sobriety, which was his pot-based recovery program, where you smoke pot to stay recovered, or to recover. And so Amy gives him shit about it, and he had some doctor on, and she was saying, it exacerbates psychosis, and some people take it, and they, their mental health issues get worse.
Right.
And that's when Joe said, yeah, but you can't make policy based on, how a Skittle affects one diabetic. You know what I mean? So in other words, we all do this differently, that just because some people
I smell
have
a logical
these effects,
fallacy, but okay.
Yeah, I liked it, and big fan of Joe Schrank. So yeah, that's what that was. Last thing I'm going to say, because I feel like we're running long. Is that possible?
57 minutes of us blabbering.
Yeah, I know.
But that's what the people pay for.
That's what they pay for.
That's what they want. We love you guys.
So, last thing I'm going to say, because this hit me kind of hard.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, a little bit serious. Okay. I'm like trying to adjust myself here. Okay, not like that.
Yes, you are, though.
Not like that.
You've had your hand on your pants since you got here.
So, again, with my store closing. Now, one of the things I kind of didn't think about as much as I should have is, how are my children processing this? I have a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, and my store was a very big part of the local community. Everybody knew we were there. It was part of, for the last 4 years, they knew me as the sports store guy in town. And my youngest son, of course, 4 years ago, he was like a baby. So this is all he's known is, all pro nat.
Right.
And so he hasn't said much about it because he's very much a people-pleasing diplomat like I am. He's not trying to cause any waves. But I made a point of talking to him about it. But this one time, he looked a little down because I think the day I was selling stuff, I'm like, I got to go sell all my inventory. And he was looking a little down. And I said, Max, like, what's wrong, And he just looked at me and he says, Daddy, you always tell me never to give up. And he says, you tell me I should never quit, never give up on my dreams. And that's exactly like what you just did.
Oh, fuck.
I know.
That's like out of a movie.
Yeah. Well, he says a lot of things like that. He's very poetic and intelligent for a 7-year-old. But it was like, this was right when I was putting him to bed. And I was like, well, what am I going to say to this? But what I did tell him was, I was like, Max, it may be hard for you to understand, but I tried everything I possibly could. Yes, I ended up giving up, but would you tell the people? He knows what the Titanic is. I don't know why he's obsessed with it. We watch these documentaries on it.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. And I said, think of the Titanic. Maybe the captain who went down with the ship, he wasn't a quitter, but he's dead. Right? So do you think...
Did he go down with the ship?
In the movie he did. I don't know.
I thought he survived.
Let's say for the sake of argument, he went down with the ship.
Sorry.
Okay. So I said, I'm like the guy who saw the ship sinking and jumped off to a life raft.
Right.
Then I explained to him, like, this will be like getting a raise for the family. Like, we're not spending all this money every month for a store that can't support itself for the past year. Mm-hmm. And I really
explain the macroeconomic trends to him.
I talk to my kids like they're adults a lot of times, and then I try and explain things. So, but he understood. I felt like I saw recognition in his eyes. I'm like, do you understand? I said, Max, this is such a better opportunity for us. I know it's hard. I know we were this little brand in town, but. And I think he really got it, but that really hit home with me. Like, how is my 7-year-old perceived this? My older son, he gets it. I think, he knows that now Daddy's home, and I said now Daddy's home Saturdays. I mean, I got to go to his basketball game.
Yeah,
and but it's interesting, when kids, the way they see things,
they are resilient. Though he'll bounce back. He'll see that this was the best thing for you that you could have done.
Yeah, and
so you don't want to be like the band on the Titanic that just kept sawing away at the cello when they were getting sucked under the water.
And the Titanic actually comes up a lot when people switch to a different addiction. They say that's like changing seats,
rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The Titanic is used in a lot of metaphors when you think about it.
Yeah, it's a big ship, great movie.
Yeah, I don't know. You like the movie?
I mean, I liked it when I saw it, and I was like 18, and I was on a date, and
if you're on a date, that's a great movie.
She wouldn't even hold my hand, though. That never panned out.
I'm sorry.
So that's all my life update stuff. And do you have anything else for the Monksters?
I spent last Saturday eating meat in the woods with a bunch of men.
That's great, I think.
Yeah.
What did you... Oh, Cub Scouts?
Boy Scouts.
Tell me all about it.
So, the Boy Scouts do this thing called the Klondike Derby, where they have to build a sled and then drag it through the woods loaded with stuff, and then they have to stop at different camps and perform various scouting-like things. Like, for example, and the different troops ran these different camps. So our troop ran the starting fire and boiling water camp. So the kids would have to come into camp, they'd have to build a fire, boil a pot of water in 20 minutes. And without using matches or anything. They had to use flints and all this kind of thing. So I'm sort of cautiously stepping foot into the leadership of this troop because I'm a little freaked out by some of the dads in there because they're like, it's a lot. I mean, I don't have any issue with cops, but it's a lot of like that kind of like
Isn't
first responder,
militaristic.
Cop. A little bit? I wouldn't even say it's militaristic. No. It's just like not my ordinary crowd. You know what I mean?
You're more of a Jethro Tull, Yes concert kind of guy.
I mean, listen, I have redneck hobbies, right? So the way I bond with these guys over, I go skeet shooting and target shooting and stuff, and all these guys are like gun freaks, right? So like we bond over that, but it was just a very strange experience because some of them identify as, libertarians. There's some Republicans. There's some very religious guys. And it's this weird collection of dads. But we all could seem to get behind this whole idea that if you set up a grill and you cook a whole bunch of Polish sausage and eat it together, that's like some sort of weird, it's some sort of weird Neanderthal bonding ritual that goes on in the woods.
Pass the sausage.
Listen, maybe that goes on at other campsites, but it didn't go on at ours. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but so I don't know. I just found it to be an interesting day with these guys because.
Is that Ben doing that?
Yeah.
How is he how is he doing with Boy Scouts?
He's getting into it. Into it.
That's cool.
He claims he hates it, but whenever he's there, I see him having a good time. So I don't really understand. He's getting his first aid merit badge and all this other stuff.
That's so great.
It is great. I'm just, so maybe this is the place where we shift into the self-care discussion because I'm looking at the amount of time I have to do stuff, and there's stuff that I really like doing more than eating meat in the woods with a bunch of
but that's time
guys.
With your son, though, more than anything.
Yes. So that's the reason that I want to get involved in this, right? Yeah. To go camping and when he's camping and all this stuff. And the weird thing about Boy Scouts is you go in when you're like 11 years old, and then you age out when you're 18, and those are very difficult years for a kid. Going through puberty, going through all this stuff, and my oldest son, like. The minute he hit like 12 or 13, he didn't want anything to do with me, and my middle son a little better with that. And I feel like this is my last kid, right? Like, I don't want to fuck it up. I want to make sure I'm always around,
right?
And
making up for past mistakes with other kids, is that?
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't, here's the thing. You could be the best parent in the world and you could get a kid that's completely off the rails. It's just the older I live, the more I realize. And, I get 3 kids and they're all completely different.
Yeah.
And as far as I am aware, we parented them all the same way.
Right.
So, when everybody comes down on parents, like in the aftermath of some kind of a school shooting or something, they're like, arrest the parents. And I'm thinking those poor parents probably tried everything conceivable under the sun to get the kid help. And, in most cases. Right, because I can think of some notable exceptions.
Yeah, like don't give the kid an AR-15 for Easter or something.
Right.
Please.
But I don't know, and so I'm trying to parcel out the time that I have, which I'm going to have less of because, of course, going back to the office at some point.
Right. If it's anything like what's going on with me, I'm very nervous.
I never had time to do stuff. So, how do you come up with a schedule where you can try and be in each one of your kids' lives and your wife's life and still have time for the things that you need to do for your own mental health? Because it's a very delicate balancing act.
Yeah. And that's what this show is supposed to be about today.
Yeah.
We're talking about self-care. We're talking about how to keep yourself cared for. And that doesn't, like if you're going to AA meetings 3 times a week, like that's a form of self-care, but it's also completely recovery centric.
You need to have things outside of that.
I believe so. Maybe not necessarily your first year or 6 months. I feel like for me anyway, it was important for me to do nothing but focus on my recovery. And that's what I did until it took. I mean, that took 6 years or something, but it took a while. But I feel like, once you get to a point where, like you are, where you can go into a bar and not think twice about drinking, maybe this is a good time to cut back on all of your recovery stuff, like, chairing meetings, doing this, doing that, going to even if you do enjoy it a lot, and make time for other hobbies. The problem happens, though, that when you're also trying to be the best dad you can be, when you're trying to be the best husband you can be, the best employee, when do you fit in time? For me, I drove here, as fast as I could directly from work, and I have to tell my family tonight, listen, this is what I'm doing Thursday nights, and they respect it, and I have to let myself off the hook in order to do things like this.
Yeah, a couple things. Like, I think the level to which you can, when you quit drinking or using or whatever, engage in other activities, I think, is dependent on where you're starting from. If you're just a casual, what's the word I'm looking for? The anti-grace word, the type of drinker that's not a gray area drinker,
gray area.
right? If you fall in that area, and you find that you don't necessarily need all of those recovery resources to quit, then you're going to need to fill all that extra time up sooner rather than later, because you don't have meetings, you don't have, recovery networks, you don't have all that stuff.
Yeah, if you're not where I was, which was I almost lost everything, including my life. The only thing that mattered that was going to keep me alive was to be deeply entrenched, But if you're not there, because we're getting a lot more people like from the anti-grace universe and all around, so that's a different animal.
You need to fill up that time,
right?
And
that's a good
so
point.
In that case, I would suggest, if you're exercise minded, that is a great place to start an exercise program. Within the first few months,
Yeah. I think identifying where a person is at is extremely important.
I think that's the key, because it also depends on what age you are, right? I mean, if you have a long history of decades of drinking, you cannot expect within 4 weeks for your body and your mind to sort of rebound to where it was, before you started pickling yourself every night.
Yeah. You have to take your health seriously.
The last and final time that I quit, I was expecting what happened in the previous times I quit to happen this time. In other words, I'd have a few weeks of low energy and cloudy thinking, and which would quickly be replaced by a sense of purpose and a pink cloud of some sort. But that didn't happen this time, because it had been so long that it took my body like at least 90 days before it started feeling normal again.
Yeah,
I was exhausted all the time, and the thing I did this time that I didn't do other times was I didn't make demands on myself. Like I didn't try to do everything at once. I didn't try and start to accelerate my exercise program, switch my diet up, do all a million things that I would usually do,
a lot of
and then
people
fail.
do that.
So there's a line between self-care being stuff that's good for you, and then indulging in a little too much too fast. Which can push you right back to where you were.
Like learning three instruments, like learning three instruments at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, if you're talking about like a mandolin, a banjo, and a ukulele, you might be able to pull that off.
I think you could.
Right. But if we're talking about like a sitar, harmonium,
and a hammered dulcimer,
you're going to have problems unless you don't have a job and you sit around and play stuff all day, which is great.
I mean, that's absolutely true. And I think a really good point that we're getting at here is it goes back to what we've discussed about a spectrum of people suffering from addiction and changing our approach. So part of what, people out there should do is, how do we identify where we're at? Because when somebody is really low, feeling low, and they're really deep in their addiction, they don't always see it for what it is. So it's almost like think back to, when you were drinking and going to work and you're like, I'm doing all right. I'm getting my, and you think like, if you lost your job, then you'll really know. Then you're going to take it seriously. But I went through all of that, and every time something horrible would happen, I'd flip a car, my wife would throw me out, or something horrible, lose another job. I would just rationalize it like, it wasn't the drinking, it was, so how do we get someone in a position where they can get an objective opinion about just where they are on that spectrum? I think that's huge, to be able to identify where you're at.
Yeah, that's where a little self-honesty becomes essential. I mean, I think you can kind of tell where you're at on that spectrum. I mean, there's, if you're having 2 or 3 glasses of wine when you get home at night and maybe a few more on the weekend, then maybe you're a gray area drinker. If you got a couple of handles hidden around the house and you're sneaking airplane bottles out, then maybe you're a little further along on the spectrum. And maybe when you quit, you need to fill your head with recovery for 6 months to a year before you start branching out into other things. I think I think you can probably have a sense of where you are on that spectrum.
I think it's important, though, to get yourself in a situation with people you trust. Like if you get onto the, around other recovering people, but you have to give yourself to that and then take people's advice. You have to open yourself up to the possibility that maybe you don't have this. Maybe you do need to slow down on something. Maybe you need to take, and that's very hard to do. Not everybody is in that same spot where they can be self-honest. In fact, I had an extremely difficult time, being honest with myself. It took a lot of therapy and a lot of failing to finally get to a place where I could really have an accurate picture of who I, where I was actually, where I was. And so then I could take the appropriate steps.
Is therapy self-care?
I think it definitely is. Most definitely. Seeing a therapist, going to one, or doing telehealth. I think I always recommend, no matter how many meetings you go to, no matter what else you're doing in your life, I should take my own advice. I get a lot out of a therapist, especially when you find the right therapist. I think it goes a long way.
People in therapy are often in therapy to deal with the people in their lives that don't go to therapy.
Yeah, I agree. That's part of why I went, I think, besides my addiction.
I think therapy is helpful for people, but I don't know. So you've stopped drinking.
Right.
Let's say you're 6 months out. Let's say you're a year out. And now you have to, what does self-care look like at that point to you?
Self-care at that point, I love the idea of the running. I mean, we've been hammering this home.
So exercise is part of self-care.
Exercise, I think.
Doesn't have to be running, right?
No,
some people hate running.
I know. It's like...
They fucking hate it.
Yes, they do.
They would only run if they were being chased.
Well, it's like running is what you do to warm up, to play things. Like when you're playing tennis, you do running.
Right.
It's not the actual
See, if you're
goal.
a sporty guy, then that's the definition of what you do with running.
Right. It's a warm up. It's not.
But tennis itself could be the self care.
Well, right. So doing
golf,
things like that, golfing, just like Joseph Naus does, focusing on something that is creative, or or
creative is different.
I don't think like just binge watching Netflix is considered self care, but
I think it can be.
Maybe. I mean, like anything, if you do
not
it
if you do it every day,
but yeah.
So so that's a good point.
Yeah.
So we have these self-care things like exercise, right? That's self-care. Maybe getting a massage is self-care. Maybe getting
not from your sister-in-law though.
No. Maybe getting a facial is self-care. Maybe whatever you define that as, right?
Yeah.
But we can tend to overdo these things, can't we? At what point does self-care become like pathological or dangerous?
I think when you're learning,
is that possible?
When you're learning 3 instruments at the same time. Now, I'm sorry, I keep going back to that, but I think sometimes I've heard you, sort of gasp at all of the hobbies that you're trying to attend to. Like if you guys don't know, Mike he takes pictures of birds. That's one.
Not for your English folks. The animals, not the ladies.
Right. Not the birds.
Right, not the birds.
The birds. You also go scuba diving, which is a very time-consuming, expensive, and dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, I don't do that as much anymore.
You do a podcast. You're interested in recovery. You also, what other, you play guitars, right? You've got 1,000 guitars everywhere. You
meditate.
You meditate. Like, so you're doing, and so I think when these things start to not make you feel better, start to become something you're stressing about.
Interesting.
Right? Then it's too much, and then you have to dial it back.
So there are some days, like, and I'm prone to, I would say, mild clinical depression every now and again, where it's just, how it is. You sit around, you don't want to do anything. Everything sucks, But there are some days when I sit here and I look at the camera and I look at the guitar and I look at, all the other stuff around here, and I think to myself, like, I should be doing one of these things. And the fact that I'm not stresses me out. Like, so even with exercise, it's like I have committed to like working out with weights like every other day, even though they don't seem to do anything to my physique. But I know that as I get older, it's important for me to maintain muscle mass. So I do it, and I dislike it. And it stresses me out that I have to do it every other day.
So maybe don't do it.
But then I will get weak.
Well,
and I will not be able to, perform other things. So so some things have to stay, even though I'm not going to label that as self-care. Right?
For me, that would be running.
Okay.
And when I got myself running, that was an extremely fantastic form of self-care that and you remember, if you guys go back to the show when I was doing my running,
you were
I was
so high,
fucking into it. I was high as hell.
Yeah.
I was feeling great. I listened to Rich Roll's entire book, Running.
Finding Ultra.
Finding Ultra.
Yeah. Great book.
Rich Roll.
He's going to be on the podcast.
Please, Rich, come on our show.
Working on it.
And as hard as it was for me to get moving and doing that, every time I finished my run, which was maybe 3 or 4 times a week, I wasn't going nuts. It wasn't every day. And I was doing 3 to 4 miles tops.
That's great, though.
And I felt like I won, bringing it back to the Super Bowl. I felt like I won something when I finished. And then what happened was when I had to stop for a bit because I went on a trip and whatever, it was impossible for me to get myself moving again because of the inertia. I wasn't in motion. I couldn't stay in motion.
The secret to that is to never stop.
I know. And I think back on that, and I even said it on the show because, and then the working out fell off too. Like the whole thing, I lost my momentum, and my life changed. Everything changed, and I could not fit it back in. So one of my goals for my self-care coming up is buy a new pair of Brooks, because I saw a pair of yours upstairs that look really cool. I kind of want them. The bespeckled ones that were like black and white.
Those are actually Jacks.
Oh, they're cool, man.
Yeah, they are.
Anyway, I want a pair of Brooks, and then because I'm also a consumer nutcase. I love to buy things. I'm a shopper.
That's more self-care for me right there is Amazon.
Buying stuff,
Yeah, but see there, I tend to overdo the buying. I've really had to rope myself in on that because, we've been talking about taking the podcast and doing more video and stuff. And I get on there, I start researching stuff. I end up buying all this shit. I bought this little Zoom camera for to record music performances. And I'm like, do I really need a camera to record music?
Dude, let's hook this studio up. I'm planning on spending a lot of time down here.
But the thing is, it's you can chase those rabbits so deep down the holes, the podcast is one of the hobbies, right? And you can just go out there and
we can go nuts.
You could go nuts.
Let's do it.
But the thing is, you shouldn't go nuts.
Please
you have to. I know.
Please, let's go nuts on your credit with your credit card.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's
actually,
but I would see. I'm a gear junkie, even though I end up buying stuff and I never end up using it. It just sits around.
But we're going to use this. We've got people listening.
But it's the same thing with exercise, right? I have to run every day. Every day.
Yeah.
I can take a day off.
It's amazing.
Every other week or so. But it's not good for me.
Just so you guys know, Mike is standing up and I am now sitting down, and it's very... Here, I'm going to stand up now too.
Okay, you stand up too.
I'm all... And now we're both standing up. I think, I'm getting that way too. A couple of times I had to stop myself from buying, I had all this stuff for the podcast and that, new microphones, 2 preamps, the whole shit. And I'm like, that's $3,000.
I know. But I mean, the larger point to that is you can do that with anything, know, and it really, it's dopamine is what it is.
You have to hold yourself back.
It's addiction whack-a-mole to some extent, even self-care is, because if we do things that feel good, sometimes in the back of my head, I'm like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I like to do it? Is this good for me? Or am I doing it because it gives me a dopamine hit? And then I say to myself, well, does it matter? It's a healthy thing to do. Running is a healthy thing to do.
Sure.
Lifting weights is a healthy thing to do. Although I think I tore my rotator cuff a couple weeks ago, but
that's not good. But also, that's a great point as far as checking in with yourself. And I was talking to one of our employees, I'm getting to know these people, and people tell me things that they probably shouldn't, all the time. I don't know what it is about me, but I always get people they think I'm a therapist, no matter what setting I'm in. when I was at the store, it was people coming in the shop. In any case, this particular employee was somehow it came up about his depression, and I found myself counseling him. But what I said kind of surprised me, because I was like, oh, that's a great idea. It just kind of came out. And I said, it's important that when you're feeling that way or you feel like a depression coming on, that you check in with yourself and you think, well, why do I feel this way? Is this something that is just happening to me, or am I sad about something? And the process of checking in with yourself, it doesn't cure it, but it gives you an outside perspective maybe from yourself to say, like, maybe I don't need to feel this way. Or like what I used to do when I was running in the summer, if I found myself getting into that anxious mode where I was like, clenching my teeth, I'd say, I got to go for a run. Like, because I would say to myself, I got to do something about this. It's a warning sign. This is when I used to drink. Right. Or this is when I used to use. So, know thyself.
Yeah. Two thoughts about that is any element of self-care has to, I think, have some kind of checking in with the self. And I think the best way to do that is through meditation. And it doesn't have to be a lot of meditation. It could just be a little meditation, like 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. But that you set aside that time to check in with yourself, to sort of figure out what's going on inside your head, right? Because if you don't have that relationship with yourself, you can just go firing off willy-nilly in every direction. And maybe one of those directions someday is like down the street to the bar.
And that's when, I'm going to bring it back to this, and that's when your inner addict who's waiting in the wings, right, if you haven't properly attended to him or her, that's when they jump in and go, this is, go grab a drink.
Right.
This is when you go get a drink. And so, and I think a lot of this is stuff that you can work out if you're new to it, with a therapist, with even a psychologist who does talk therapy, or with your group, with your RMA group on Sundays or on the Facebook group. But, it's important to start thinking in these terms, because I'm thinking back to before I got into recovery. This isn't how I was thinking.
No.
It seems like a natural thought process right now, but this is practiced. It's something that we talk about regularly, so it comes easier. But if you're listening to this for the first time, this is something to start thinking about. Like, be your own best friend. I always say that. Pay attention to what your body is doing, and then you can take steps, hopefully, to mitigate the things and that's why they tell us, look at your triggers. I think that's sort of what they're trying to do. And, a lot of these, if any of you guys have been in rehabs, there's always a class, quote unquote, on triggers and how to deal with triggers. And it's like a whole thing. Like, what are your triggers?
Yeah.
They have you listing your triggers, but this is really just a process of starting to identify things you may be encountering or doing that you don't realize.
I was thinking about triggers the other day and thinking how it may not be good to sit there and make a list of things that trigger you, because anything can trigger you in the right circumstance or the wrong circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense as far as, look, every time I go to this bar, I drink.
Yes.
That's a trigger.
Right. That's okay.
Or
going to a bar is a trigger to drink. Many, many times it is.
Or I used to have a friend who we used to always do coke with, and so anytime I saw him, I started to feel it. My tummy rumbled a little bit. My mouth got dry before I even touched it. But that's a trigger.
Pavlovian response.
Absolutely.
I mean, but you can sort of, if you don't feel like sitting around thinking about what triggers you to use, you can also just sit there and do the check-in with yourself and kind of figure out where you're at. Because if you are strong in your recovery, that trigger is not going to do anything to you. Like, I can go to the bar and get the 00 beer at the Super Bowl, but while in another circumstance that might be a trigger for me. So I think it's too hard to always be sort of wondering, like thinking about, well, shit, is this a trigger, or am I going to get triggered by that? Better to just keep yourself in a state where you have developed some self-awareness. I mean, look, self-care. Some days it's running a 5K race. Some days sitting on the couch eating a pint of Ben & Jerry's. But the only way to figure out what you need is by getting in touch with who you are.
And therein lies the key. Would you like to make any wrap-up statements about self-care? I think we can move on to our recovery in the news.
Oh. delightful.
Yes.
Yes.
I think we should, because we
It's been a
didn't do
while.
it last week. What are some last things you want to say about self-care?
Know thyself.
Know thyself.
I think the better the closer relationship you have with yourself, the more you understand the way your thought patterns. Did I really say that? Thought patterns arise, and what you do with them, the easier it will be for you to stay sober and enjoy your life. I mean,
and that's what this is all about.
This isn't like, recovery is not supposed to be some sort of grind. It's supposed to be, I see it as a voyage of self-discovery.
It is.
That's why I like the term sober naut.
I don't know that one. Sober naut, like astronaut,
but a sober naut.
I love that.
Yes. Exploring inner space.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, Mike. I feel like that's what we're doing. You know, it was funny when Mishka made that comment on the show, like, I hate talking about, sobriety, and this is the worst thing. I understand that because I was there. Mm-hmm. And most scenarios you find yourself in that are about recovery are kind of like that.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like you're retreading old patterns and, hearing other people's, but what we do is a lot more interesting, because addiction is such a wide spectrum of issues and things, and like you can take it from the criminal justice aspect, where you can study the human mind, you can study relationships, medicine. Like, to me, and all of it comes back to what happened to me. So it is a self-discovery. It's looking at where I've been, where I want to go, and mapping out how to get there. Boom.
Yeah. I used to think that addiction and recovery had everything to do with substances like alcohol and certain drugs.
They make you feel that way.
And it does, but it's much bigger than that.
Yes.
Right? Because
it doesn't end when you stop drinking or using.
Addiction is it's a process. It's a state of mind. It's a condition. It's a human condition. It's a pathological coping mechanism. It's everything that's wrong with society, today. And, and that will tee us up for Evan Haynes.
Yes. Show note, Evan Haynes, March 10th, Can America Recover is his book, and he's going to be coming on the show. We're very excited. It's ready to go. So pick that book up, and if you can finish it by the time we have him on, I will buy you lunch.
Why don't you start a Discord server for that book and call it a book club?
The book club. This is something
That's
we're doing.
That's kind of a heavy tome.
Yeah, maybe
as
we
the
don't.
First book.
Let's not
for the book club
with that one, but maybe we
start with the Tao of Pooh.
The Tao of Pooh. I've never read it, but I owned it. It was one of those books that I kept on my shelf.
I think everybody had one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an ex-girlfriend bought it for me.
Yeah. It's a good book, but the Tay of Piglet, not so much. He turned bitter.
Piglet, yeah.
Get very cynical. Anyway, it's time for Recovery in the News.
Yeah! All right. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. Motherfucker. Yo. It's not in key.
No. It is in tune, though.
It felt so good to sing that since not singing it last week.
Was it building up?
It was building up.
Did you feel a release?
I did. Full release.
Full trigger point release. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I was macking on Fox News for their shitty reporting. And today, I'm going to turn the tables and mac on CNN for its shitty reporting. We are a equal opportunity shitting on news organization.
Yes, right.
So anyway, CNN, you sent me this article, in fact.
Yeah, I saw this on TV, and I thought, it was a story on on one of their shows. And I go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And my wife called me and she goes, did you see this? And I said, oh, wow.
Oh.
And then,
I guess it was a segment on a show, but the title of the article that I read in preparation for the show is Experimental Brain Surgery May Help Some People Overcome Drug Addiction. And the story starts with the story of a kid in Morgantown, West Virginia, who was a heavy drug user. He was addicted to opioids for more than half of his 33 years. And the kid had gone through rehab and he never was able to string days together. And he was approached by some scientists who were doing a study, and they asked him if he would be willing to try some brain surgery for addiction. And it was a research team at the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute at the University of West Virginia, which is about 10 miles away from their house. And the young man was already a patient at the institute. He was being treated by Dr. James Mahoney, who was a specialist in substance abuse. I'm not sure what medical specialist that would be. Is that a neurologist, do you think? A specialist in substance, or is there a separate addiction medicine specialty? I think there is, right?
I think there is. I've been to so many different doctors who claim to be addiction specialists. I've seen so many different like addictionologists, and so I'm not even sure.
I don't know. Just a side thought, but this kid's last name is Buckhalter, so that's how I'll refer to him because that's how the article does. So he was an athlete. He was a basketball and a football star. He was fielding Division I scholarship offers in the 10th grade. The local newspaper had named this kid Mr. Everything. But his senior year, he got a shoulder injury, and he got a prescription for opioids, and he was prescribed the pills for 6 weeks. And then, you know how that story goes. He started finding them on his own. And by the time he was in his 20s, he was using heroin. And when Dr. Mahoney proposed the surgery, he was at the end of his rope. He had never been able to string together more than a few days or a couple of months. So he said, yes, let's do it. So there was a 4-person research study at the University of West Virginia, which was testing the safety and feasibility of something called deep brain stimulation, DBS, as an addiction treatment. And what they do with DBS is they drill a hole in your skull. They insert an electrical probe, which is a little piece of wire about 1 millimeter wide. And then when the probe is in place, you're sedated, but you're still awake. And then they show you a series of images on a monitor, piles of drugs and other pictures meant to induce cravings. And the anxiety that had haunted Buckhalter for 17 years. Based on his responses, he adjusted the probe a little to the left, a little to the right to make sure it sat in the correct position. And the hope was that the electrical signal would restore healthy function to damaged brain areas that had been damaged by the drug use, and free him from the nonstop craving that held him prisoner. A couple thoughts on that. They already used deep brain stimulation for treatment of Parkinson's disease.
Right.
Which, interestingly enough, and I think what's her name talked about this in her book on dopamine, that Parkinson's disease is a dopamine-related condition. It affects the same transmission systems as addiction in the dopamine system, and it's successful to some degree with Parkinson's, which is interesting. And they also use it to treat epilepsy and obsessive compulsive disorder. It also calls to mind, I don't know, you ever see Clockwork Orange?
Yeah.
Where
yeah. They hold the eyes open.
They hold the eyes open and they show them scenes of violence and rape in order to try and make him not violent and rapey anymore. So anyway, so then the article goes through the overdose rates in West Virginia and stuff, and the overdose rates overall in the United States. But and then they talk about the dopamine and the nucleus accumbens, which is the overactive part of the brain that is hijacked to seek dopamine, and they have had some success with this deep brain stimulation. It's a very small study, but apparently they have had success with it. But
so
there's a but.
But
the but is
what is the but?
The but is it was successful in his case, and he's been 2.5 years sober right now. So you would think great success, right? He also, for the first time after the study, was put on naltrexone and had an intensive outpatient program where he was followed up constantly and had a lot of different people participating in his recovery. So I'm not sure how you tease out what was the result of the direct brain stimulation and what was the result of the naltrexone.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of
buprenorphine or whatever it was he was taking, and combined with the intensive therapy.
Yeah, it's hard to say, when they throw the kitchen sink at you and throw in an experimental thing. That's like what I did. I don't know what part of what I did finally nailed it, but who knows? They don't have any better studies of it, or
no, but they're going to fund new studies because this one was successful,
right,
in some degree. But let me ask you this: we have a nation full of people who are addicted to things. Are we going to put probes in everyone's brains? And hook them up to a machine a couple times a week?
This reminded me instantly of lobotomy. When I didn't. This is before I understood what they meant by brain surgery, but the last time we were talking about brain surgery to fix people's mental illness, this was a lobotomy, and then this was Thorazine, and that did not work out so good.
Well, I mean, isn't it also a little reductive in that you're just saying that the addictive problem is something that can be cured by sticking something in your brain and electrifying you? I mean,
and I think most experts don't think that that's the case. They're not even saying it's a gene anymore. It's more of a constellation of problems or issues.
So do we need the electric brain stimulation as a tool alongside of the naltrexone and the buprenorphine and the intensive therapy, or what? I
think all of that is good, and who knows? I mean, is this damaging at all, this kind of brain surgery, or is it like that ECT treatment that is very light, from what they tell me, and it's just sort of?
I don't know. I don't know how light electroconvulsive therapy is.
They were always trying to get me to do that.
Were they really?
At different places I went to, I had my first Suboxone doctor, because they have to have a specialty in it in order to prescribe it. He's like, I just got this new machine. He's dead now, by the way. Aside from being dead, he had some interesting practices. He bought one of those machines, and he was very proud of it.
ECT machine?
Yeah, he's like, I just got this really cool machine, and he's like, it's been working great for depression, and I was like, I don't think I want to do that, man. He's like, no, it's not like it used to be, and I said, thanks, I'll take your rain check, and please give me my Suboxone now. So that was coming back at around, I don't know, a bunch of years ago, and so it's more accepted today. Anyway,
I think if you look at Evan Haynes' book that we were just talking about, he goes through a little bit of the history of ECT therapy as a treatment for mental illness, and really there's not a lot of evidence behind its effectiveness. But But I don't know. I mean, this is deep brain stimulation. It's a different animal. Can it be used in conjunction with other therapies? I mean, I think the jury's still out on it. I have to question the push that CNN, kind of the spin they put on the article that this is has the potential to be some great treatment for addiction, when it was a study of 4 people, and when there were all these confounding variables, in this guy's treatment experience that could have accounted for the recovery that he's been experiencing for the last 2 years, or the fact that he turned 33 and that a lot of people tend to age out of drug use. So, I mean, I don't know if you can draw any conclusions based on that study. Maybe just enough to get a little funding for another study.
Yeah, it's an interesting aside, and I love to see all of these new things that are going on, trying to treat addiction, trying to find new ways to help us get sober. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah,
check out this article. Mike will put it in the show notes
at some point.
Recovery in the news.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. I'm so fucking tired. All right. Week in Weird. By who?
Tim Banal.
No, this week it was not Tim Banal. I was amazed because I went to my usual place on Coast to Coast AM where we get these articles, and it was someone named Ryan Stacy.
Is he okay, Tim Banal?
I hope so. He might be on vacation. And the article is, Canadian Sasquatch destination gets $1 million boost.
Yes, back to Bigfoot. It's been so long.
The next time Sasquatch is spotted in British Columbia, Canada, he might have a smile on his face, thanks to a recent grant by the province's government. The visitor center that's home to the Sasquatch Museum in the village of Harrison Hot Springs will reportedly soon receive $1 million to put toward a new building that expands its offerings to fans of the hairy legend.
He definitely took his writing cues from Tim Biddle.
Yes, he did. Construction is expected to begin as early as summer of this year, and in a statement that's sure to generate almost as much controversy as the existence of the creature himself, a local tourism official asserted that the new attraction will make Harrison the Sasquatch capital of the world.
Wow.
In addition to the
That'll
activities
really bring him in.
and exhibits the project brings, plans for the expansion include the museum's commitment to continue to honor the Styles, the area's First Nations people. That's a word I didn't pronounce properly. It's like style. It's the First Nations people name, and known to them as Sasquatch. The creature has long been part of their traditional lore as a supernatural being who watches and protects their land.
What does one put in a Sasquatch museum, since there is no evidence of such a being?
Well, you got to take a really big mannequin, you put glue on it, and lots of hair.
Yeah, and I mean, do you have that shaky film that people took of that Sasquatch roaming around?
A giant prosthetic penis. Right on the front. Is anybody still listening? Hello, and that is Week in Weird.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And on the note of the giant prosthetic penis, we will take our leave of you.
Yes, that about does it for today. I know I had a great time. Did you?
Oh, it was awesome.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube.
Can't find the end. Oh,
Twitter. So tweet us at twat you twit. Support your favorite show. Drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Join our private Facebook group. Buy a t-shirt. Write and say hello. Join us on just yawn in the middle.
I'm sorry.
Join us on Patreon, where we get extra bonus shows. We have a great Discord discussion server. That's patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages.
Watch Nat get attacked by a small white dog.
Yeah, there's gonna be some funny videos up there. Get the video interview of Mishka and a few other episodes on there. And finally, the best way to help the show is to share it with a friend. If you get something out of our little show, please share the love and help grow the RMA movement. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
Progress, not perfection.
See you next time.
Be good, friends.